Editing in Lightroom Classic, we are reviewing all of the mask tools. This is a video where we've already been editing this video in previous options. So we started with a sky edit. We added a mask to the tree using object selection. We did a linear gradient to this side of the image. And then we did a radial to darken the center path of this road. So in this image, I want to show you how we can selectively use color range to impact just the tops of our sunflowers. All right, so to get started, we're going to select color range, and it's going to create our new mask here. Now I'm going to go ahead and label this, double click on it, and it did not work. So I am going to, that mask did not work. It's wanting me to select the color. So let's go ahead and do that, and then I will rename it. So I'm going to come in and try to select that yellow. So what you're going to see is right here on the right side of your screen, it's going to pop up this color range and it's going to give you the color. Now you can refine it. Refining is going to make it stronger or make it lighter. Now I want to keep it pretty strong because I want it isolated to just these sunflowers. Now I'm going to go ahead now and double click and rename this, and I'm going to do sunflower color. Now I notice that it's picking up the sign in the back of the road, and I don't want that. So remember, in order to fix that, we can do subtract. I'm going to use the object selection tool. I'm going to come in and just go right over that, and it is going to take that away for us. So love that new object option. So now we've isolated just the yellow flowers. I can take off the overlay, and now I can come over and play in my basic panel and make the adjustments. So I can pop the exposure a little bit. I could shift and alter that color. I wanted it to be a little darker, just a little bit more of that darker sunflower color. And again, maybe just give it a little more pop of exposure, maybe some texture. Just giving it just that nice pop. That's all it took, just a couple tweaks. So this is so much easier than in the past having to brush on and not getting accuracy with your color. Now let's go to another image that we had worked on before. Let's go to our flowers in our vase. And for this image, we've already done some mask. So we did a mask with the select subject, where we selected our vase, and then we also removed some of the colors from it. So we've already done an edit there. And then we also did mask 2 is down here, and this was all of our background area. Now I want to go in and selectively adjust the colors in the flower. So I'm going to create a new mask. We're going to go to color range, and then I can come in and make these modifications. So let's first work on this purple color. So I'm going to select that. And again, at this point, we can make adjustments. We can refine, bringing that down to be more kind of less, or we can increase it. Now you see it's picking up the book here. So you have to be careful with that and really think about where we want to make our impact. Now that I've selected the tips of these flowers, you can also hold the Shift key, and you can do up to 5 selections, which can also help, or sometimes it can hinder where it is selecting from. So I'm going to go back and just select that one area that I had in the beginning. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the saturation on that, and I could also change the hue if I wanted. So if I wanted to make everything a little bit more pink, or I could bring it over, of course, make it more purple, I'm going to give it just a little bit more of those pink tones to bring some consistency to the image. So I'm just going to pull that back just a little bit. So that was one way to use color range. Now our book's down here. Let's go ahead and do create a new mask, color range, and I'm going to sample down here. And there it did a great job. Now it is selecting some of our flowers. So what I'm going to do is subtract, grab the object selection. I'm going to place it right here and see how it does removing that And it did. It took it off. And now the only area under this mask 4 is our books. So I can show you that. If you always want to test yourself, you can just give it some exposure. So if we bring that exposure up, look, it's only impacting our books, and it is impacting some parts of the other flowers. So we've got to be careful with that. Here was our color range, and we selected the books. And if we look at the overlay, this is where we can change our overlay, and maybe we want to do it on black and white. Image on white. Sometimes it's good to try these. I'm not seeing where it's really working for this one. So let's go back down here, and oh, now we can see it. It moved. So we can see there is some of this mask is in our flowers. So all we have to do is grab subtract. We can do the objects again, and we can just make sure that it's not on this part of the image. So this is something you're going to want to practice. So let's go back through. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to do it one more time for you. So we're going to create mask. We're going to do color range. I'm going to select the books, and I want to change my, there we go, my cover overlay back. Okay, so we can see it's added some tones here in the image as well. Now, if you don't catch that right away, you can always go over and do that exposure adjustment, and we can see where that mask is impacting, and it is impacting our flowers. So what I'm going to do now is subtract, grab the objects, just going to go over the flowers and vase, and it is going to remove that mask. And now our mask is only on our books because we've removed it using that remove tool. So now I'm going to come down, and for those books, I want to change the color a little bit. So let's see if we made those books purple. Look how that changes the image, and it's only impacting this part of our image because we did do that subtract. So color range has so many options available. You've seen me now do it with our sunflowers. We can do it in an image like this. I have another flower image where we could go here, and we can again do select color range. We can grab this purple, and we can refine it again to give it more. We want to really select all of that, and we can come down to hue. We could change the hue of that flower. We could also do any other adjustments. So we could darken it, make those micro changes using color range. So if the object that you're wanting to modify is a strong color in your image, then I highly recommend color range. If there's a lot of colors, then it can sometimes be a little bit more challenging, but it is a great way. Let's go back to another image. And if I do create mask, color range, and I'm going to select just this amaranth plant, and look how great it did. It's even picked it up right here. So it's bringing in all those color tones. And now I can come in, maybe give it a little exposure, give it some saturation, and even make it maybe a little bit more of that dark amaranth color. And it's only impacted that area of my image. So I love color range. I think you're going to have a lot of fun playing with it. Now, the other one in this select group is luminance range. Now, luminance is the brightness area, the bright areas in your image. And I like to use luminance range mainly with clouds. So let's select it. It's going to bring over a dropper. And this is where I can select these bright parts of the image. Now, you're going to get this luminance range map. And this can be a little tricky for some people. So what you want to think is this is taking you to your darks over on the left, and this is your brights on the right. So what we want to do here is we can slide to enhance. And we're wanting to impact the clouds. So I'm actually going to bring it over to the right just to get a little bit of those clouds in the mask. Now I can come down to my exposure. I can just give those a little bit of a pop just to bring out a tiny. These are micro adjustments. You're typically not doing, huge adjustments. You're making just really small micro changes to your image to impact it in a really beautiful way. So tiny, tiny adjustments. So if I turn that off and on, you can see how that's impacted with that luminance. Now we can also use it back with our rose image. So let's try that one. And for this, I'm going to create new mask. Let's do luminance range. And I'm going to come down and just go into this kind of bright area. And you can see where all the brightness is, it is selecting that. Now I can adjust so that it's just focused where I want it to be, which is going to be outside the rose. I really didn't want to impact the brightness of the rose. So I'm just going to spread this map out and kind of come in there. Now I can come down and just brighten, or remember, it's got to be very, very subtle or you will get this map look. So it's going to give you this. This is a watch out. You don't want that in your image. So you have to think about that. This might be where I reduce the highlights a little, maybe add a little brightness. I could also modify the temperature. So maybe want to add a little bit more of that pink tones, and you can do all of that there with color range. The luminance range will give you some distortion like we just saw. So you have to be careful with that one. Color range, I don't find that happens as often. Let me model one more example for you. And in this image, can come over and we can add luminance range. Again, I'm going to select the clouds. And now I can come in and modify. So I can tweak if I just want to impact a little bit of that white wisp in the clouds, and I can just brighten it. Now it only again takes just a tiny bit. This is going to be very subtle and you're hardly going to notice it. But it's a great way to make small micro adjustments, and using that dropper to select it saves you so much time versus brushing on and off. Now you'll also see there is a depth range option, and this is only available for images that have the depth range data in them. I'm not going to cover this in the course because most of you are not going to have the availability to use this at this time, but it is something that in the future you may be able to use. There are videos on YouTube about it, and I will try to link to one of those in case you are interested. But you've got plenty of tools here to play with. All right, everybody, so that was color range and luminance range. In my next video, we are going to walk through editing people, and then I'm going to give you my tips and tricks to navigate this whole system. Thanks, everybody.